This is KB Reptiles back with you, and you know where we are. We are at the Reptarium. We are excited today because we have a couple of things going on.
Yeah.
You're going to want to watch this video for sure.
Yeah, we're going to sit down and chat with Brian, and we are really excited about that. So stay tuned, and if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Hang in there, guys. It's going to be awesome.
Brian, thank you very much for having us here today.
Oh, dude, anytime, man.
I want to try something a little bit different with you.
Sure.
And I just want to do a one-on-one. I want to try to, if I can, bring a little bit of background of you to our fans, to our viewers.
Working here with him, I feel like I've gotten to learn a lot from him. Like a lot of like the nuts and bolts of ball python breeding. And I feel like I've really evolved as a keeper because of him.
For some of us who know you well, we know the age you started off in your first animal. But for anybody new, can you tell me when exactly you started off with your very first snake and how old you were?
Yeah, well, you know, it started really when I was way young, like in like 3-4 years old, to be honest with you, catching snakes out in the woods that was right by my house, and I was just obsessed with them. You know, I mean, so I always tell people I was kind of born just obsessed with reptiles, you know, reptiles, dinosaurs, really all animals, but for some reason I really love snakes, you know, so I used to love going out every summer. Even when I was a little kid, times were different back then. You'd send your kids into the woods and not see them the whole day. But so yeah, I spent most of my summer literally, even when I was just a little tiny kid. But then my mom was terrified of snakes. So she would allow me to catch them and keep them in the garage, but I couldn't bring them in the house. And so it wasn't until I was 15 that I was able to, she finally was like, okay, you can have a pet. I think she realized, number one, the phase wasn't going away. At the time I was working at a pet shop, taking care of the reptiles. So she saw that, you know, hey, this kid is really into it and it's been a lifelong thing. So let's go ahead and let him have his first snake. And so 15 was when I bought my first snake. 16 was when I produced my first snakes.
Excellent.
And then when I was 18, I started BHB.
He's taught me so much through his videos on just reptiles itself. I really wanted to expand my knowledge in reptiles. I just made it a mission to become one of his employees. It's been awesome.
At 15, what was your first snake?
It was a Burmese python. And it's crazy because, you know, I worked at this pet shop and we got little baby Burms in. And the owner of the pet shop told me, and this is my fault, again, there wasn't the internet, things were different back then, but certainly I could have done some more research. I think the owner said that they got like 8 or 9 foot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they get like 8 or 9 foot. So I got it, and I had it for probably 2 or 3 months, and then I came across a book that was on Burmese pythons, and I bought the book, and I remember being completely blown away when I saw the pictures of this like 18-foot Burmese python, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no, of course I had already told my mom that I only got 8-9 foot. So, but I had that animal for, gosh, 20-something years.
That's fantastic.
You know, so yeah.
Oh, cool. Now, this is new even to me. I didn't realize the age. At 18, you started BHB?
18 is when I officially started, like as a business.
Yes.
You know, I started paying taxes and was an official business, and BHB's been that way ever since.
Now,
Yeah.
what inspired you to want to start the business at that age?
You know, I think I knew that I always wanted to work with animals, and in particular reptiles. And at that time, you know, back in the late 80s, there was no full-time snake breeders. You know, I mean, even when I started my business, you know, there were guys like Mark Bell and Eugene Bissett and some of the guys that have been around a long time, but they all had jobs. You know, they were working jobs and doing this on the side. And that's really what my intention was when I started VHB, was that to be just kind of like to help pay my way through college and so on like that. And I just wanted to be legit. It wasn't like I really even needed to theoretically start as a business, but I always wanted to do things by the book. So I was like, let's start a business, because I was producing quite a few snakes at the time, and that was the year that I produced albino Burmese pythons, and we made like $40,000 that year on albino Burmese and het Burmese, and I was only 18. So at that point I felt like it was pretty important to be legit and pay our taxes and all that stuff.
I watched Brian online and stuff, and just kind of had an average job, busting tires, working on cars, things like that, and I was just thinking to myself that life's too short to kind of not do what you want to do. It's been an incredible experience. It's just really cool to have Brian and Lori to kind of mentor you and show you the way. I really do feel like a part of this family, you know, like everyone's kind of in it together. Like, man, he just inspires you to have that energy and that passion and that love for reptiles. So.
Now, did you have family helping you? Is this a solo effort? How did you?
Yeah, at that time it was solo. You know, it was before I met Lori. and so I was on my own. You know, my family really, like I said, I lived in my mom's basement.
Yeah.
So she let me have the one snake. And then a few other snakes kind of snuck in, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I finally had like a little room I built in the basement, and she never came in there.
Okay.
So I think at one point she thought I had 3 or 4 snakes, and like 6 months, 8 months went by, and she came in. There was like 100 snakes.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, so that's how it kind of progressed.
So, and I mean, this may be hard to remember back to 18, but at 18, did you have an envisionment for what you wanted to see BHB come to?
Not really, to be honest with you, because like I said, it was about that time, shortly thereafter, that Eugene Bissett quit his job as a mailman, and that was really the first guy that was a professional snake breeder.
Yeah.
You know, that was going to leave a career and start a career as a snake breeder. So I didn't ever see it being a lifelong thing, to be honest with you. I was just on the front end of something, and I loved it, and I was always going to work with snakes and breed snakes. But I think I just thought it would pay my way through college, and that I would eventually, you know, become a zookeeper or a biologist or something to do with the study of reptiles, and never really realizing that it was going to be a 30+ year long adventure with reptiles in that sense. So no, and again, you know, the thing I was really lucky because the opportunity of starting a company at the very front end, it's almost like you can it's analogous to, say, buying Amazon stock when it was a penny stock. You know, you're in the right place at the right time. You didn't know Amazon was going to take over the world. You just invested in this company, and that's kind of what BHB was. Is that, you know, we started this business when it was at the very early stages of the reptile breakout, and as the reptile thing broke out, I just rode that wave.
So now you said college. What college did you go to?
So I went to a college called Macomb for microbiology. Didn't graduate with my degree with microbiology because by the time I was really into my 3rd year of college, I bought a house and I was making pretty good money breeding reptiles.
Makes sense.
And then at that point, I did have the vision of like, this is what I want to do for my life. And I wanted to just do it the best I possibly could do.
Seen so many different kinds of animals, learned so much while working here. Brian is really good about giving us a lot of information. If we have any kind of questions, he always answers. It's like great to learn all the new stuff here.
Now, what age did you meet Lori at?
So I was 19 and she was 18. I met her on her 18th birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I met her on her 18th birthday at a party, and I tell this story often. I met her, and this is, I swear to God, this is the honest God truth. I went home that night. I lived with my mom, obviously. I went home that night, and I told my mom I met the girl I wanted to marry. And I had never said that before. And then, but it was an interesting twist to it because and what it was one of my very dear friends' girlfriend's friend, Lori was, right?
Yeah.
And so the next day I contacted my friend who contacted his girlfriend named Kathy and said, hey, you know, Brian that you met last night would like to go on a date with you. And Lori's response was she didn't remember meeting me. So she was like, who?
Lori,
I don't remember meeting this guy. And she did end up going out on a date with me, and obviously at the end, we've been together 30 years.
Now, how did Lori feel the first time she saw any of those reptiles? She was
terrified.
Really?
You know, she didn't like snakes at all. She was really afraid of them. And I remember the first time she came to my mom's house, which was, you know, within a week of us meeting.
Yep.
And she wouldn't even go in the reptile room.
Really?
You know, she didn't even want to go in there. And then as we were dating more, she realized she could hang out with me while I was cleaning and feeding. Yep. And then she realized the next step was, oh, if I help feed and clean, we can get done quicker, and then we can go out and do something. And that's how she started helping and becoming more comfortable with it.
Was her envisionment the same thing to you? Was she doing something different for work, or was she really going to come right into the business?
Yeah, so we had my daughter Jade before we got married, and so Lori's really like her like vision of life was to be a great mom.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she really didn't necessarily want a career. She's you know, the thing that I love about Lori is the fact that even to this day, she doesn't aspire to like do like big businesses and stuff like that. She's just happy with living modestly and simple, and she really does keep me living that way as well. Like every time I'm like, oh, we should buy, you know, a fancy car, or we should, you know, buy a, you know, what? She's like, no, we just need to live modestly, and so that's always made. So I think that she could work the business from home because we, at this point, like I said, we had bought a house. Our snakes were in my basement, and she was able to stay home while I did my thing with the business, and she could raise my daughter. Awesome. And of course I did too. But that was she wanted to be the best mom she could be, and it was an opportunity for her to not have to go and get a job.
Honestly, for me, it's just normal because this is like the only life that I've known, you know, but it's definitely a lot better. I've had a lot of jobs in the past, and this is definitely the best job. So he's been a pretty big inspiration for a few reasons, but one of the main reasons is obviously he's my dad. So I don't look at him as like Brian Barczyk like everybody else does. I look at him as my father. So when I see that he has this like great success with the millions of followers, which is still crazy to think about, it gives me inspiration because, you know, I think if my dad can do it, well then I can do it, you know what I mean? It's just like, so it's a good motivation, and it gives you a good drive because, you know, he's been doing the daily vlogs for like 3 years, 2-3 years. Insane. And that is so crazy, like, of a grind. So it's like, whenever I feel like I'm not working hard enough, which is technically all the time compared to him, I just look at him and it's just like gives me motivation to keep going, you know what I mean? Huge motivation, and it's awesome.
Do you remember the first ever expo that you went to, and then the expo that you actually worked at or sold an animal at?
Yeah, so we were, you know, I was just talking about how there was the first ever show in the country was a guy named Don Hamper, which literally, unfortunately, just passed away a couple days ago. He started, it was in Millersport, Ohio. It really started in a guy named Rick Harvey's basement a couple times, and then he ultimately got this little VFW hall called, it was Millersport, Ohio, not too far from Columbus, Ohio, and that was the first reptile show I went to and vended at, and it was bonkers crazy because it was really underground. We were, again, maybe 19, 20 years old at the time, and we'd go there, there was no backdrops or displays, and way before the internet, you just show up with a bunch of deli cups. And to give you an idea, Mark Bell, for you guys that don't know, is one of the largest collections in the world, and me and him shared an 8-foot table at Millersport. I mean, literally shared an 8-foot table.
That's crazy.
Now if we go to shows, I don't do shows anymore, but we used to take, you know, like we'd have 6-8 tables, and then he would have the same. So so yeah, that was the first show, and of course then that translated into the Daytona or Orlando International Reptile Breeders Expo that's now in Daytona. And Wayne Hill, who puts that show on, literally came up to Millersport, Ohio to scout what a reptile show would look like, and then wanted to do a big show, and that's ultimately what happened with the International Reptile Breeders Expo. That happened in Daytona, and then in Orlando, and then ultimately ended up in Daytona.
That's crazy.
I'm actually attached to his hip pretty much, so I pretty much spend every waking moment of my life next to Brian, going on adventures and doing stuff. And you know, I watched Brian for 2 years before I came here, watched every single vlog, and felt like I knew him before I even got to meet him in real life. But working with him is an experience that is very hard to explain, because he not only drives you, but he shows you that you're worth something, you know, that he makes sure to let you know that you're important to him and to his life, and he takes time out for all of his employees or crew or whatever you want to call them. But he really does show a lot of compassion for the people he works with, and that's means a lot to me.
Weirdly enough, when I started off, I was a Kluber guy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and ball pythons didn't really come into the mix. As a matter of fact, when I started working with ball pythons, really Kevin McCurley, Tracy Barker, and myself were the only three people really that wanted to buy ball pythons that weren't albinos or pies. Right, so you had Pete Call and Brian Sharp kind of buying up pies. Ernie Wagner had a pied as well that I ultimately ended up buying from him. And then you had albinos with Bob Clark, and then to me a guy named Jamie Quick. But the other ball pythons, everyone thought they were junk. I remember going out to dinner. At this time now, we're in the early 90s, 92, 93 range. And I remember going out to dinner with Mark Bell and a few other breeders that were big names in the business at the time. And them making fun of me because I was buying ball pythons.
I remember
they were
saying,
literally making fun of me for buying ball pythons. So it was this interesting dynamic. There was a guy named Emmanuel Noah from West Africa, Accra, Ghana, and he was kind of the only real ball python guy over there at the time. And so Kevin, myself, and Tracy were all kind of going for Emmanuel Noah, like Noah needs to sell us these animals, and they were cheap. I mean, compared to what they were now, you know, or what they ended up being. But we were buying into them. So yeah, so I was a colubrid guy and a Burmese python guy. I was Burmese pythons and colubrids, and I worked with other stuff like Bismarck ring pythons and Delvers pythons and Dumerils boas and stuff like that. But it wasn't really known as a ball python guy. Well, I wasn't known as a ball python guy until ball python started to take off, which is more like 97, 98. So probably the first 4 or 5 years I was working with ball pythons, I wasn't, like, no one cared. And that was one of the advantages I had. Not only I was able to buy a lot of these really cool ball pythons, like cinnamons and clowns and all these other stuff, pastels and all this stuff, before the real craze hit, but also I had about 100 adult female ball pythons that I had raised up. So even when the ball python thing started to pop, everyone just was starting to grow, and I already had a mature group of animals because I just loved them. I didn't know that the ball python market was going to be as explosive as it was. I just worked with them because I thought they were so cool.
So this will be an interesting question to see if you can answer, because I still remember, because we're fresh. Do you remember your first pairing?
Yeah.
And how many eggs?
It was, I remember exactly, it was a pair of normal ball pythons, and I got 4 eggs.
Nice, I love it.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Normal to normal. Normal to normal.
Yeah.
The first mutation that I ever produced was actually het for ghost, or hypo, because I had a ghost male from a guy named Mike Ellard, Burgundy Reptiles. They were the first 3 came into the country. I ended up with 1, Kevin ended up with 1, and Tracy ended up with 1.
Awesome.
And Tracy is the one that turned them ghost ball pythons. I think Kevin kept calling them hypos, and then we produced hets. And I think the following year after I produced hets, Tracy or Kevin, one or the other, proved them out to be genetic, and then the next year we actually bred ours as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now there's a big milestone coming that I want to talk to you a little bit about, the Reptarium, which we're at now. Love this place. We come to visit as often as we can. We're coming up on a year, right?
Yeah, a year next month.
So how has this been from what you envisioned when you want to start the Reptarium? Is this where you have already pictured it was going to be, or is it past what you thought?
It's not. You know, listen, I could have never imagined in my wildest dreams that things would have taken off like it did. It's awesome. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of people that come every weekend, the amount of tours and events that we do every week are outrageously. I mean, no, in a million years, I would have never expected a year later we'd be busier than we were when we first started. And no, and you know, it's the amazing feeling of seeing kids and people come in here and hold their first snake, or someone that comes in that is fearful that ultimately touches or holds their first animal, and that happens literally every single day. And that's so it has wildly exceeded my expectations.
Is that what inspired you to want to do something like this? Because it's different than what we see next door, that we're able to go next door and see one aspect of it, but to come into here, I always thought, what inspired you to want to have animals in such naturalistic displays for people to come and see and hold? And,
you know, I've always loved that. You know, I love zoos, and what I said was I wanted to build the place that I wanted to go to when I was a kid. So like this is in my head what little Brian at 3 years old wanted to go visit. And there was actually a place called the Call of the Wild up in Upper Michigan that was very similar setups, but it was like stuffed animals, right? Not stuffed animals, but taxidermy animals. And I remember that since a kid going up there, and I loved the place, but there wasn't living animals, you know? And so I said I wanted to build like the Call of the Wild, but with living animals. And so that's what inspired me, to be honest with you. And really a lot of the things that are now so amazing about the place, like I said, all the education and stuff like that, that I didn't even really think about much, because I didn't expect it to be popular like it has become. So I thought, yes, people would come, but I thought it'd be like 20, 30 people a night. You know, that's what I really thought. And on most nights we have hundreds of people that show up. So it's really crazy. And I thought maybe we do birthday party every now and then, or this and we do, you know, almost every day we've got tours or birthday parties or zoo to use or school events. So it's wild. But that's what was the inspiration, was literally just to, you know, that childhood fascination with Call of the Wild and stuff like that. That's what I built.
Yeah, that was so cool. Now, I know the amount of time you put in for work, your work ethic. How, like, where did you find the energy, the drive to do the amount of hours you do in a day? Like, how was that always something instilled in you? Is it something you picked up as you came in life?
No, I think it's, well, you know, Jay, my camera guy, always says that if we had 28 hours a day, we'd have a couple extra hours to sleep or something. But, you know, I mean, literally we work day to night. And I'll be totally honest with you, you know, my drive came from my fear of failure. Yeah. I'm always forever nervous about failing, but not so much that I'm nervous to do it. I'm a doer. I will accept the consequences of everything I do, but no, my motivation, it's not like I'm special in any way. It's just that I'm so motivated to not fail that I'm willing to outwork everybody else, right? And it's a tough thing because I love what I do, and everything that I do I love, so it's easier to do them, right? If I was, say, punching a clock, you know, laying concrete, I don't know that I could work 18 or 20 hours a day and be inspired to wake up the next day to do it over again. But, you know, every day I get to wake up and do things that I love, and it is ridiculous. I mean, you know, again, I brought up Jay, you know, he's with me every day, all day, and working like a dog, and he's one of the very few people that has ever been able to keep up with me for a long period of time. Normally, if someone's with me for even 4 or 5 days, they have to take a vacation. But that's just because it stems from the fact that I want to achieve things, but I also don't want to fail.
Be serious. He's helped me out a lot more than probably he knows. Met Brian at Gatorland about 5 months ago and stayed here for a week, and I shot his vlogs for a week, and he enjoyed the work I did and the bond that we had together. We worked well with each other, and off of kind of good faith, he's hired me and has allowed me to move out and live a life with my fiance, and it's, you know, I can't thank him enough for that, for sure.
Brian, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I do want to ask another question here, though. We got to know you from going to our very first show. It was the CRB in Toronto. Us being Canadians, we went out there and we got to meet you. How has it been, just a brief description of touching so many lives? You're known to a lot of people as the guy who got a lot of people into the hobby. And I just want to finish off with how that has even driven you more, inspired you to be known as one of the main guys that's gotten people into this.
I think it's something I don't dwell on really hardly ever. Okay. I think that, you know, I tell people all the time, and I think that people that don't know me and haven't hung out with me sometimes have a real different opinion of me, and I think that, you know, success, whatever that means, breeds either ego or humility, and for me, I'm unbelievably humbled by the support I get, and to the point of it's almost like I can't think about it because it overwhelms me, right? Like I really honestly mean this. Like, I feel like I'm not deserving. Now, don't get me wrong. We work hard for everything we do, and I think that from that standpoint, the amount of effort we put in, it's like, I don't feel like it's somehow like not worthy or something, but at the same time I feel like I can't believe it, and sometimes when I put like the people to the numbers, you know, so I'm a numbers guy. I'm really heavily into business and numbers, and when you start looking at, you know, 15 million views a month or something like that, sometimes I'm just looking at that number, and then when I sometimes think about, like, that's 15 million eyeballs, or sets of eyeballs, that's a little overwhelming to me, and it feels like it's a responsibility I take so seriously that it makes me work harder, because I want to keep those people happy. I want to keep those people, like, you know, show them how much I appreciate their support. And if I feel like I don't want to let them down, if I let them down, that's failure. And that's the failure I can't have. So, but trust me, when people, I think anyone that knows me knows that I'm very uncomfortable with praise, and I have always been that way. So when people do tell me stuff, it's even more humbling.
I'm gonna make you uncomfortable right now. I want to thank you for all you've done for us, not only as now what we know ourselves to be as KB Reptiles, but before we ever did this, you were the one who inspired us to get our first ever reptile. And I don't want people to think this is being said because I'm sitting here with you. Anybody who will ever know us from years past will know that we've said this about you before I ever met you. So again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your energy. I want to thank you for teaching us. And I want to thank you for just making everything
Well,
a
it's
little
just
bit better.
it's great to become your guys' friends. That's the most important thing. Is you guys are amazing. You got the right attitude. You've got the right kind of energy to you guys. So I love you guys so much. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for
You're
your
welcome
time, Brian.
anytime, man.
Make sure you guys, if you don't already, follow this man. Phenomenal. Thanks again, Brian.
No, thank you.